Hello, everybody. This is Alex Merced, and you're listening to DevRel and Dev Advocacy, the podcast. Okay, and what I want to talk about today is um, blogging. Okay, so one of the things that most DevRels, most Dev Advocates are going to be doing is writing a lot of blogs. And the question is like sort of what your goals should your blogs have, and how should you go about writing them? Generally, you're going to find two sort of categories of blogs. There's going to be your technical pieces, okay, where you walk through people on how to do something, okay, and then there's your thought leadership pieces, which where you're kind of helping people understand why something matters and what it is, okay. So depending on sort of what your goal is, which one of these two categories of pieces that you're writing, you can take a different approach. Like I personally love writing technical pieces because I love just getting knee deep into sort of the technical aspects of things, creating like prototypes and writing some code and all that fun stuff. And the approach I usually take there, so I'll start there, is what I like to do is like I'm going to say, hey, okay, I have this idea of an architecture or a thing you can do. And what I do is I go out and do it before I even write anything. I'm just going to go out there and build the thing. Okay, so let's just theoretically say I'm going to do a tutorial on how to do a to-do list with X, X, and X stack. I would actually just go build it first. Okay, I would go build it first. That would be step one, because that's going to just allow me to kind of figure out, okay, and then I take notes of the places where I run into snags. Okay, because chances are when I run into problems, these are going to be the same exact problems that whoever is reading my article is going to run into. So I make special note so that way I make sure to mention them and make a side point. Because a lot of times you read a lot of articles, they just kind of tell you the steps as if everything went perfectly, and they don't highlight, the potential gotchas. Okay, which are sometimes, they highlight oftentimes the obvious ones, but again, sometimes you don't realize certain gotchas exist until you actually go do the thing. Um, and you realize, hey, I just spent an hour debugging X. I should probably make a note of this. Okay, so I do that and to kind of discover that, and then what I do is I build it again and I write it as I build and I'm going to write the blog as I do it. So that way, like the blog is going to be an accurate representation of the steps that I took. Okay, because another thing that happens is a lot of times people will build the thing and then they go back and use the one they already built to write their blog. Okay, so they're taking snippets from the blog, but already they're starting to forget steps or things that they did. Okay, um, and then basically sometimes like little pieces of the story end up missing. That makes it harder for the reader to get from point A to step one, to step two, to step three, to step four. Okay, so I'm going to do that. And then after that, blog is written, goes through the editorial process, gets published, wonderful. Okay, now generally what I like to do at this point is I'll then make a video. Okay, I've gone through this whole process twice, so I've built the thing once that helped me kind of really make sure I understand like the steps. The second time was to write it and document it, okay, which also helped me learn how to express myself, because in the middle of like writing what you're doing, you start realizing, hey, maybe I'm not sure how to best explain X, and you kind of figure that out. So you figure out how to express yourself about different things. So then the third run, I build it again, but this time generally as a video, okay? And then this time it's going to go really smooth because when I've done this twice before, and in writing the blog, I basically thought about how to express myself for this. So now in that third round, making the video, it generally is going to go real smooth. Generally, I can get it done in one take, especially since I record videos fairly regularly. And now you have lots of pieces of content that you can share, and then that's good. Now, when it comes to thought leadership, okay, you have to ask yourself sort of what your goal is. Okay, is your goal to bring awareness? Okay, and again, awareness of what? Are you trying to build awareness of the product, a problem? Okay, because oftentimes like one comes before the other. The idea is like people aren't going to care about what the solution is if they don't know what the problem is. So oftentimes like the first step in sort of building that thought leadership is making sure people are aware that there's a problem. A lot of times people just do things and they are faced with a problem, but they aren't aware it's a problem. They just think this is just the way things have to be. Okay, whether it's just like living in a world of lots of data copies, or a lack of performance on their data lake infrastructure. Sometimes people just think, okay, that's just the way things are, and you learn to work around it or live with it. So it's not a top of mind problem. So then you have to create content to help sort of like say, hey, there is this problem, okay, and it's a real problem. There's a cost to you dealing and just accepting that this is the state of things, okay, whether it's a lack of compliance issues, falling behind in the rate at which insights are being derived and things like that. So, you know, basically that's sort of one aspect, so highlighting the problem. Once the people are aware of a problem, then they're going to care about a solution. They're going to be like, okay, yeah, Alex, this is causing me a problem. Like, what do I do? Okay, I don't want all these copies. I want better performance in my data lake, so I don't have to do as much work on my data warehouse and have that huge bill every month. What can I do, Alex? And then you can discuss a solution. And then again, when you discuss a solution, you know, you want to make sure you kind of highlight the benefits, or like, what's the monetary value, cultural value. Again, I'm speaking it from the point of view of I work as a developer advocate for Dremio, okay, a data lakehouse platform, which is pretty cool. You should definitely check it out. But again, the point here is like when I'm basically, it's not just a cost benefit. Yeah, you do save a lot of money, and when you don't have to, have as much storage costs if you don't have a bunch of copies of your data laying around, and that's also going to result in less compliance costs because you're not getting fees from lack of compliance because you have all those data copies, and the performance of the query engine is going to save you money because you're querying stuff faster. Like that's all fine and good, but also like there's a cultural benefits in the sense that people have easier access to the data. Okay, and basically things like the semantic layer allow people to communicate much more effectively. So allowing people to have a much more cultural awareness of what data exists and much easier use of sharing and interacting with the available data. There's all these benefits, and you have to kind of like parse them out, okay? Because a lot of them aren't obvious, and everyone's always just kind of like, they think that the only benefit's always monetary, but there's all these other benefits that all end up being monetary because at the end of the day, it's going to help an enterprise work as a team and build that and business value. Whether it is it's not just lowering costs, but also increasing revenue. And you can increase revenue when you have, better data culture and better insights. Okay, so generally, like again, when I'm thinking about like why should people be adopting the Dremio Data Lakehouse platform, is they are going to lower costs, but they're also going to increase their access to data and the speed at which they can use that data, and the efficiency in which they can use that data, which is also going to raise their revenue. And really kind of painting that picture. Okay, so that's what we can thought awareness again. So you're not necessarily saying like the how, but you're talking about, okay, hey, here's the problem, here's the solution, which then allows people to kind of get curious and then ask themselves about the how. Like how, okay, so great, how do I use Dremio now? Because I would like to have those lower costs. I would like to get that greater revenue from better use of my data. Okay, how do we make these things happen? So generally, again, you want to always think about sort of like your writings for these two categories. One that's sort of like painting the picture as to why people are going to want to investigate the technical implementation aspects. And you want to kind of go into each piece. And again, there's going to be bleeding around. Of course, you're always going to, when you write technical pieces, you're going to want to introduce it with a little bit of that, that thought leadership. So, if someone finds your article and didn't read your thought leadership stuff, they still have some context as to why this blog article matters. And at the same time, in your thought leadership pieces, you may want to direct people to places where they can learn more about implementation and link to those technical articles and whatnot. But generally, you want to think sort of in that category. Like, what am I trying to do? Am I painting a picture? Am I providing context, or am I providing how-to guidance? Okay, and if you think about that, it makes it easier to sort of focus on sort of like what. Okay, and then again, when you're doing the technical stuff, you got to be thinking sort of like what am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to help people explore? So like, am I just trying to create some like very low level how to start an account, how to do some basic things with the tool, so that way they can explore the tool? Or we're talking about sort of like much more downstream, more advanced use cases where we're assuming that, hey, this is someone who's been using the product for a while. And again, you have to just kind of think about sort of like where in the process you're targeting. Okay, and then you write to that. But the idea is like anything in life, you want to take a moment to think about it first before you just dive in and do a thing and just start writing. Think about sort of like, what is the purpose of this? What is the intent? Like, why is someone reading this? Which will also help you figure out like who is reading this. Okay, and why do they care, and what would they hope to get out of it? Because if you just write something, no one's gonna care. Okay, because you wrote things, but you didn't really think about who your audience is and why do they care and all that stuff. So you're not answering any of those things for anybody. You're just putting out information to put out information. So hopefully you found that useful. My name is Alex Merced. Again, you're listening to DevRel and Dev Advocacy, the podcast. and I think this is what like the second actual like episode. But again, there'll be more episodes. I was out for a couple weeks on different trips, speaking and doing, being part of the greater data community. But I'll see you all later. Have a great day and enjoy. And make sure to follow me on Twitter if you don't already. AM Data Lakehouse, or you can follow me on LinkedIn. Just look up Alex Merced. I'm not a hard person to find.